Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. We're going to talk today a little bit about anxiety. I just finished my 8-week anxiety course, Function of Anxiety. And we'll just kind of talk a little bit about the theoretical side, the practical side, some of the take-home notes that you guys can kind of do and go from there.
Yeah,
Where should we start,
exactly.
Coach?
So before we go practical, I want to go theoretical. So Richard had a lot of experience with talking about this for the last 8 weeks. Before we go in there, I wanted to explain how I see anxiety right now based on all the studies I've been doing lately, on the studying I've been doing lately, and I think I closed the loop on the anxiety stuff. So there's my theoretical view on anxiety. Anxiety, first of all, is not a disease. It's none of that. It's energy built up, not spent. So I'm gonna explain. So potential energy, right? That was never realized. So I always say anxiety is a driver, and that's a little bit what I see is, let's call it potential energy not released. So from a theoretical perspective, you see anxiety a lot. It's called the somatic error.
Yep.
So we're going back to prediction versus observation. So the prediction is a fight is happening or should be happening. So the energy is being built up like that. We see that with the raise of lactate that is a fuel, right? The problem is the body is not agreeing with your assessment of the situation.
Right.
So the observations don't match the predictions.
Right.
And so when you have a prediction that is not followed by an observation, you have a somatic error. And the somatic error has always been, the size of the somatic error has always been relating to the size, the quantity of anxiety in that sense. Right. So that fits well. What I'm going to talk about fits well, for example, like with the mice solution when it comes to anxiety. How do we measure anxiety?
I hope they're nicer than the depression test.
No. They're not. Well, actually, technically, yes, they are. But mice anxiety in mice, it's their capacity to go into a brightly lit, open area.
Okay. So how unsafe they could, how exposed they could get themselves.
Exactly. So how much they can face their fear.
Right.
What allowed them to do that, we see that is when you inject osteocalcin. Suddenly, they're able to go toward open, brightly lit environment, so facing their fear better.
Okay.
Right. So that's how they measure anxiety. Yes, I know it's that advanced of the system,
Yeah.
whatever. So
you can get shots of osteocalcin.
Yeah.
So I don't need to jump. I can just go get shots.
Technically, your body will adapt. I'll do that over bungee jumping.
I wonder if they
sure,
do that for astronauts because they don't have any impact for so long.
Yeah, but the problem is eventually you'll.
It's gonna.
First of all, like it would work for anxiety, but it would not. It would still. Your bones will weaken.
Right.
So eventually you will get fucked. Yeah.
Right.
So, but as a short-term solution, it would work at least to get the anxiety and the stuff like that. Right. Well, even for loss of cognition, because remember when osteocalcin goes down, cognition goes down as well.
Right.
So that's probably a problem astronauts face because of the weakening of their bones. So osteocalcin most likely is a short-term solution for that.
Okay.
Yep. Which, by the way, same thing for all people.
Right.
Like, so there's an entire thing there that is very interesting. But so, what if the bones are an antenna for the outside world?
Okay.
You know, from an observation perspective,
for sure.
What if the bones are the antenna to the outside world? So, parasympathetic is energy spent inside. Sympathetic is energy spent outside. Right. Spent outside, you need to know what energy to spend outside.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the prediction is a fight is happening, but how do you know whether a fight is happening or not? Right. You need a contact, basically a Markov blanket, anyway, with the outside. Right. So the skin, or what if the bone is that antenna that allows you to connect to the outside through impact or pressure?
Okay.
So if you have a mind that sees problems everywhere, you see a fight is happening at work or whatever, but the antenna tells you no. Because low osteocalcin, no pressure, no impact on the bone, the body is like, I don't see the fight. Right. Then you have a difference between the prediction and the observation. You get anxiety. So you have a build-up of energy never spent because the body does not agree with your assessment of the situation. And what if that's anxiety? Because the antenna is not sending the agreement with your assessment of the situation. So the state does not match the action.
Yeah. Now, how much impact do you think there needs to be on the
That's
the
a
bones.
that's the question. How much impact? How much pressure?
How much pressure? Yeah.
Right. So that's the question now. Is
Right.
that right? But that would be interesting. So, for example, if you push that, then those cushy shoes promote anxiety.
Anxiety. Right.
Sitting on a soft chair promotes anxiety. Sleeping on a soft bed promotes anxiety.
I sleep very comfortable. Well, my bed's not super soft.
Yeah, compared to mine, it is. But you could see the accumulation of things that we do.
They could
Right.
promote
That
yeah.
take you away further and further and further from a true sympathetic state, which we've seen many times is a problem. So I remember like on the online nervous system workshop, I was talking about the problem is we're addicted to the parasympathetic.
Right.
Right. And so it requires to go back to sympathetic requires such a jump, and that's where the anxiety comes from. It's a drive to make you go jump toward the sympathetic side. But if your antennas don't agree,
then
it's harder. You will never die on an airdyne like you die in a jiu-jitsu fight.
right.
Ever. It's just not the same. You cannot replicate this here. Or the sled. Yeah. You cannot replicate that here. It's just not the same. Probably because your bones don't agree.
Right.
Because the pressure, the impact isn't there. Like a heavy yoke carries,
Right.
there's something to your head that I don't care what they say about the airdyne. You're not going there
not
anymore.
different.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
So if the bones were the antenna,
Yep.
right? And I mean, obviously there's different components as to how the energy is being spent and everything. Talking about like Levy, before the fight, there's still a massive amount of anxiety being built up.
Right.
So is that
Because he knows the fight is coming.
gonna
Right.
be coming.
But a fighter is what? Like it's on the way to the ring that he gets nervous. Once he's 3-1 and it's about to go, everything is
calm.
fine. Yeah, they're all calm. Like Georges St-Pierre was talking about that. The reason he quit fighting was because of anxiety.
Right.
He could not take the build-up because the fight system is ready, but the antennas are like not yet. No, nothing is happening. So the difference just kills you. But once you start, then it's all good. Then finally the fight is here.
So that's why they always want to. But that's why some people just constantly want to keep fighting, as well, right? So
Right.
They get
well, because they have the whole build. Imagine if you build up your prediction system.
Right.
Like you need the observation to agree. Otherwise, imagine the potential energy that you create. So you keep fighting.
and then
Big players or whatever, you keep fighting. So your potential energy is always super high. It has to be expended.
Right.
Otherwise, it just wrecks you inside.
that's why you can't just pick up golf.
Right. And then they lose their shit because
Right.
the impact is not nearly at the same level. So what do they need? They need strongmen. They need some kind of pressure on the bones to have a fight
them push forward.
that is not equal in intensity necessarily, but that comes close to it.
Right.
I mean, so the fighters, and I've been seeing, you can't just make them go on an airdyne. Like their body, their mind could go like, oh, it's a fight because it hurts. But their body would be like, yeah, not really.
So now take it to somebody on the other extreme who is, has been a princess or a diva or feminine in personality type for a long time, no impact whatsoever. And then, panic attacks through the roof, so on and so forth. They start to incorporate training.
Right.
You can't have them go full blast.
No,
because they're going to regress.
They're going to regress right away. But what does that tell you? That tells you we could start with, so I don't want to say toughen them up, but a diva a little bit, right? So what we could say is start to train barefoot.
Right.
Remember, we used to make them do that. First of all, it takes the
that was like
shoes out.
OG CrossFit was like always barefoot, or you had. I mean, that's when like the 5 fingers, the ugly shoes came out that smell like ass. I owned a few pairs. I'm allowed to.
So did I. But I run my 5K in them, by the way.
Yeah, and so that whole era was huge of how to. We used to do everything, and then Nanos and Nikes came out with the Metcons.
Right, but even the Nanos were super thin. It's better than the fucking cushy Nike. So maybe there was something about that.
Yeah.
And like gripping the bar, like hard, heavy. It's pressure there. I mean, like they go, oh, I don't like it. I'm gonna get calluses. But it's that. But even like handstand walk or stuff like that, you put pressure on the bone. It's not the same thing as a cushy. Look at the machine in the gym. You don't feel shit. It's so comfortable. There's padding everywhere. Yeah. They're actually taking away all pressure, all contact.
Well, and that's where you see the anxiety go up on a lot of those physiques, and there's no impact whatsoever.
Exactly, I would think so.
Even
So it
their
doesn't
cardio is
match.
elliptical.
Right, all right, exactly. So you would continuously build a fight because it fucking hurts.
Right.
And but your antennas never agree. So the somatic error is always being built up.
Right.
So a way for the diva would be to start by making her walk barefoot or train barefoot, or at least, super thin shoes. Then we could add, if they want to do the sprint, maybe some just rounds of boxing, but not with the huge gloves then.
Right.
Then it doesn't do as much.
So I've been playing around because I got to sit quite some time. And so I was sitting on the ground and I was basically pulling, so doing an isometric hold of the hamstring. Hamstring promotes safety, right? And then I would stomp the shit out of my foot, and it would make me feel really good afterwards. So
but remember the dial. Remember, like internal torque, external torque, right? So what if you promote? So internal torque, you promote the parasympathetic, and then you jump to sympathetic really fast, so you can get a greater fight, and then you come back right away. Right. You would promote a greater safety, or there's probably ways to play with this we could start to explore. Yeah. Because remember, me, what I was doing is I was doing the Disney December, and then the boxing after, and at night I felt awesome. Right. So I would promote like all that, the safety, the stuff, and then go into a full fight with impact, and at night I felt awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been kind of the warm-ups I've been playing with right now is basically more dynamic, but just trying to get the hamstrings, get the glutes, get the body going, and then I go into the hard impact. Yeah. And, oh man, I feel like it builds me up, so I can just start hitting hard.
But so that's the point of jumping generally, right? Is to circadian rhythm is to get people. It wakes you up. That's the best way I can say it. Like suddenly you're like, okay, I'm doing something. Maybe all we're doing is targeting the antennas.
Right. So if we're somebody that is in an office all the time, trains moderately. So like for me, it's like, how would you explain then the anxiety going towards a CrossFitter? Because we see a lot of anxiety through functional fitnessers. Yeah. Is it because they've gotten acclimated to that amount of impact?
Okay. So,
do you get used to it?
Okay. So it's prediction versus observation, right? Mm-hmm. But look at it as potential energy, right? Yep. As they get within 2 years, they want to go toward competing. They want to use more weight and everything. So the size of the fight required in their head, doubles, triples, quadruples, and everything. Right. But the fight physically, for example, impact-wise, stays the same. Right. They want to get better. They want to do more, but they don't change their training. Right. They just do more of it. But it's not more stressful on the body. There's a little bit more weight and everything, but that relative intensity that they put in is the same or lower. Right. If you look, they don't train as hard. They just do more. But the pacing starts. If you run slower, you have less impact on the feet. Okay, if you run at 800 meters, trust me, the impact on the feet is not the same as if you run at 60. Right. Because one is, like when you absorb the shock, the other one is hitting. You can't run like that I can't even do 400 meters like that. Right. Because it requires so much concentration and everything. So maybe the problem is as they increase their volume, they diminish actually the amount of impact that they do. Right. Because they used to train. The expenditure of energy has gone down even though the volume has gone up. Exactly. Yeah. The volume has gone up and intensity has gone down. We see that a lot. But at the same time, the size of the fight required in your mind quadrupled. Because competition, because now they take training seriously, they train twice a day, they do so much more effort that the fight that they think is required to get better as a prediction has grown, but the actual fight that the body puts up has gone down because the intensity went down and the impact went down. And it goes back to, I think it was a couple podcasts ago you were talking about, like once you feel the skill is safe enough, it goes into that automatic area of the nervous system. That too. And so you just kind of... So less sympathetic.
Less sympathetic.
Yeah. So maybe it's always the same problem is they don't go sympathetic enough. But where I like the osteocalcine is that to me it closes the loop on the observation side.
On the observation side, yeah, for sure.
It's like without the impact, the pressure on the antenna, then your body does not know, the intensity of that fight does not match the one you create mentally. Right. In today's society, it's very easy to have a risk management towards stress. Yeah. I don't like this, especially with the way Facebook deals with it. It's like no one can take stress anymore. Like we were talking about that before the podcast. Bunch of pussies that go like, oh my God, like my calves.
He doesn't mean it. No, he does mean it.
Yes, he does. Like the whole
he doesn't mean it, guys. It's okay.
No, I do mean it. It's like my feet have been sore for 6 months. Like I could barely put my left foot on the ground this morning.
I stood up for you guys. This I will, because I think there's videos somewhere in the archives of when you first started doing this, because he was making fun of some of people. He's like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I was like, but coach, remember when you were doing it 6 months ago? The thing is that...
No, that's not what the conversation was. The conversation was, you said you expect them to work on it like every morning or doing a drill. Okay, that's the second conversation.
That was the second conversation. Yeah. The first one was, you're like, that they all
My point is they need work. So do I. I'm the first one to see it. what did I say?
But so
I've never boxed correctly.
Right.
I discovered that now, having Paul teach me for, has it been 3 months already?
A little bit over.
Probably.
That's
Oh,
been
Jesus
more than
Christ,
like
man.
4 months, coach. It's
No
gone
shit.
by.
Man, that went by
The
fast.
lockdown makes things go by really fast.
Jesus Christ. I've never boxed correctly.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I've never used my feet and my legs correctly before. Like Paul has done an incredible job on showing me how much I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
But I think that's also a big part of that expenditure, right? So we have the
Yes.
impact, but it's having to acquire new skills, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
how much more impact could you keep putting at some point? I mean, you
my
will
feet
get
wanna
more
give up.
muscle density.
Yes.
But at some point, that's going to sort of start to level off, like with everything else after 2 years or thousands and thousands of minutes put into it. So the next way to continue to bring impact, 'cause I think people think impact is like just keep hitting the wall, which it works to a point.
Yeah. No, but okay, but no, but that brings a very important point actually. Yeah, but look at the difference. Once you had that 2 years mark and you have acquired the skill of doing it,
Right.
then mentally you're supposed to be calm.
Right.
Because that calmness that you gain out of learning the skill where the fear goes in the back and now it's not a conscious and everything means that you are, I don't want to say comfortable within that skill, but you are peaceful within that skill.
yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu, you start to flow.
Right.
Right. So you don't bring up a higher fight in your mind with Jiu-Jitsu. On the contrary, you flow. You have less of a fight with the same pressure.
Right.
So you have less anxiety. But the problem would be if at that moment where the fight levels off because your skill gain and then your muscle density and everything, and then so your antennas signal a certain amount of a fight. If you keep building mentally, then you'll get anxiety. But you're supposed to go the other way because now you have the skill. It's supposed to go in the back.
But most
you're
people
supposed
don't
to be
go
chill.
the other way.
Well, because now that's when people go like, I want to compete. Well, because they keep moving the goalposts.
Right.
Which we talked about all the time. It's like, you came to me to fix your shoulder. Who said anything about competing?
Right.
That was not the conversation, but that's people moving the goalpost, which we know creates anxiety. Because now that I gave you through the antennas and everything a fight level that we're supposed to be at, and from there you decrease the amount of fight you create mentally. Now you're increasing it, so you move the goalpost. So the only way I can fix it is to increase the fight from the antenna level. So that's where they're wrong, and so that's what I did.
I think everybody does it, right? I mean, we all
move the goalpost. Oh yeah, there's no question. It's like I can't stop myself. The other day I was like, what if I start competing in jiu-jitsu again? I'm like, dude, stop. And kickboxing, I was like, I could do MMA at 50. I mean, I'd be the first one. That'd be kind of like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
Go home, rest.
Yeah.
But that would give me anxiety.
Right.
And that's how I quit last time.
Yeah, because you're not. You're no longer challenging that 4%.
Plus, again, I build up toward the skill, toward the pressure and everything to get the fight at a certain level. The second I get there, all I do is increase the fight mentally. So all I'm doing is creating anxiety for myself.
Right.
That's all. Instead of going the other way, going like, hey, I've reached that level. I'm good within the skill. Let me just flow and let me just make progress by doing quality work consistently. No. First thing I do, competition. Let's go back to fighting. And I'm like, dude, shut up.
That's part of human nature, though, right? Because you kind of want to show.
At least it's part of mine.
Yeah, show that alpha side a little bit.
Yeah, but then that's how I quit the last 2 times. I quit with strongman and I quit with jiu-jitsu exactly for that reason. Because at some point, anxiety gets to you.
Right.
Or maybe you have a support system that allows you to do it. Like, okay, but let's do it. A coach, a mentor, a partner that goes like, look, I'm here to help you. Talk to me about your anxiety. Why are you so anxious or whatever? So that you can lower the fight a little bit instead of continuously moving the goalpost and getting so about it. But you could see where the anxiety comes from. Again, it's the second you get to the fight level that matches your mental fight, you raise the mental fight.
Right.
You move the goalpost.
Yeah. So we start to become, let's say, stagnant on the dynamic warm-up, which for you guys is going to take at least 2 years.
Yes, don't worry about it. It's going to take a while. Yeah,
but I'm just saying, at some point, when you start to see the stagnation, right, then we need to increase the physical fight to match the mental fight.
Well,
meaning that let's say that you find peace in the drilling, right?
Yeah.
So we can use Janina as an example.
Exactly.
She finds, even though now it gives her anxiety to do the drilling.
Right, because she said, I need to be better at drilling. No, you need to run faster.
Right. So that's
the problem.
Where,
exactly. Right.
How could somebody at home that is dealing with anxiety understand if they need more of a physical fight
or
don't.
Trust me.
You all need more of a
You all need more physical fight. But that's today's society. Okay, so
Right.
we don't hunt for food. We don't hunt for shelter. We don't hunt for a mate.
Right.
I want to see beautiful women. I just go on Instagram.
Yeah.
I want food. I go to the supermarket. I want a shelter. Most people, if you don't have a
you can
shelter,
find
you're not watching this anyway.
Right.
So where is the fight coming from?
Right.
But what we do though constantly is being pushed to you need to do better.
Right.
That's constantly Facebook, Instagram is do better, have a six pack. Like we are expected to be good at everything. You can be good at anything, but you
Right.
can't be good at everything. And yet we're expected, especially women, we expect that out of them. Now you have to be a CEO, work 100 hours a week, and yet raise your kids at the same time.
Right.
I'm
I
like,
told Dad I'd be a stay-at-home dad.
yeah,
She
exactly.
said, maybe.
She didn't laugh. Yeah, I don't
did
think
not
she
laugh.
laughed at that one. Yeah, I don't think she liked it. Yeah, I don't expect Daya to like that one. But so what we have is a society that creates a mental fight, the need for mental fight, and decreases the need for a physical fight. Where do you think anxiety comes from?
Right.
Right. So what we need is to level the two. But if you level one and keep raising the other, then you'll still end up with the same amount of anxiety because the potential energy is not matching the expended energy. So someone who's in an office all the time, I swear, let's start with a harder chair.
Right.
Let's start taking your shoes off. Let's have a
We
stand-up
started
desk.
doing the stand-up desks, yeah.
Stand-up desk and take your shoes off.
Right.
And go on the fucking inside of by the way, where do they go? They go here.
Yeah.
There's padding. There's no impact on the bone there. So let's go here. Let's have the bone touching. Stand-up desk, no shoes. Let's start with that kind of stuff. I mean, let's do the jumping jack every morning just to wake up. Let's start to activate the antennas of the body, which is the bones.
Now, have you played around much with the
Not
impact
yet,
with
not
the hands?
Yet. No, because I've been, like, my feet are just dying right now,
Yeah.
so I'm like, fuck it, like I need the work. You know what I mean? Like, I need the work. Like, it's going to take me a year, don't get me wrong, probably more, especially with my flat feet, it's going to take me a lot longer. I'm making progress, but I'm still, like, miles away, so I'm still focusing on this. But yes, I agree, the hands at some point.
Now, question.
Yeah.
Pedicure.
I guess, no. But I guess it should be coming at some point. Yeah.
I mean, pedicure,
Yeah.
I think it was Coach Bergner that said that pedicure is great for weightlifters because it allows you to feel more.
A lot of them do it.
Because, I mean, you have a bunch of dead skin that builds up, so the padding gets harder and harder.
I'll listen to that one.
That'd be
Well, it's the same thing like
questionable, right?
with, you don't want to have calluses that are too thick anyway.
Right.
I mean, they tear, but still, yeah.
So you start to play around. Now, when we
That's a good
talk
point.
about
That's a good point.
impact, it needs to be physical impact, or what if we're talking about like doing heavy cleans with sandbags or...
There's pressure.
So as long as there's pressure
Because if you look
the
at jiu-jitsu,
antenna.
there's no impact technically, but the pressure on the bone is so great, you get the...
Right.
It's a crazy fight.
Okay.
So the antenna are activated. Remember, the bones bend.
Yeah.
Right, so
I remember.
Yeah, I remember from the yoke me. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, they don't bend, they break in that way. But yeah, so pressure or impact is the same.
Is needed, okay.
It's pressure on the antenna. So I think pressure is enough, honestly.
Okay.
Like this, we could test because they are tests. I don't know how expensive it is or stuff like that. So, but it'd be eventually it'd be very
it'll be
interesting to
test
see.
to have, yeah.
Remember, people doing public speaking have shown to have a high level of osteocalcin.
Right.
Because it's a sympathetic, but eventually, though, it levels off.
Right.
Unless you had public speaking that end up in a real fight. Then every time you would see the fight going up just to match the demand. You know what I mean? Like, so I think pressure is enough. So carries, maybe that's why carries work so well.
Yeah.
Because your body, your antennas feel pressure.
Constantly.
And that's enough. We know that light carries don't work. When you can do all this shit, but the second they're heavy and then they lock you down, then the bones have to go, ooh, there's weight. There's weight.
Huh.
Maybe that's why those percentages were so necessary.
Yeah.
Because the structure of the bones, the antennas have to feel enough weight to go, something is happening.
Right.
And then you have diminished anxiety because you have matched, the action have matched the state a little bit better.
Right. So
up
lower,
until the moment where you raise the mental fight.
and the skill level so low that the mental fight can go through the roof without having to focus so much of the position and
Right, exactly.
wherever it
Because
needs to go.
remember, if the skill is low, you feel safer.
Yeah.
You need less of a conscious level of being careful of each movement, so you can push
harder.
faster.
I like it.
It's interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that closes the loop on that.
Right.
But if you look that fits. So your group, 8 weeks. What did you see from because we've been dealing with anxiety for
Yeah.
a while.
I mean, I have clients all over the
Exactly, right? And we've been talking about this, we've been going around that for a while. So what did you see on that group? Like what do you think, like, for example, like, let's talk about regular beginner level.
Yeah, I mean, which is really cool. In this last group, I had a lot of people that were new to Strongfit, were brought on by coaches that were listening to podcasts and so on and so forth. And it was a great buildup. Like I had somebody that had no clue, and she was like, "I'm just extremely overwhelmed." And so then, of course, she didn't want to do any of the work. I was like, "I don't just after this call, just pick up the sandbag and drop it." You know, and again, somebody that hasn't trained at all. So for me, it's like, you know, that mouse going into that brightly lit room. It's that. And that's, I love clients that don't know anything about StrongFit or CrossFit or fight. Like when they just come
raw,
you know, virgin to the scenario. Because it allows me to show them that, you know, the things that we're doing are scary, but they're doable. Like anybody can pick up a sandbag. I'm like, just pretend you've had kids. Pretend it's your kid. That's it. That's all it is. Don't make it difficult. And so she picked it up and dropped it. And it was, you know, this is before we started the osteocalcin talks. But so basically it's a ramp up through the 8 weeks. And of course the workouts, I have the phylogenetic hierarchy. So that's part of it, just so they can kind of try to understand their nervous system a little bit, their states. And we go through, you know, basic warm-ups, but a lot of the work is done with a sandbag. And one of the guys is petrified of the sandbag and is so scared
because
it blows up his back. Which blowing up your back will make you feel a little bit scared. But so my question was like, okay, so then if you're approaching the sandbag scared every time, of course you're going to have the same exact reaction. So I do as I always do, is I will make you learn something about yourself. So I said, you're going to do 8 sets of a 400-meter sandbag carry. And right away he's like, ooh. I still never got a response if he did it or not.
Then he didn't, because otherwise he would have said something.
And so, you know, it's for me, it's always, we need to push the comfort level. So more than anything, we need action. And that's really the base of the course is I need action out of you. And it doesn't need to be perfection. And it doesn't need to be neo-Nazi style, like follow the rules. Like for me, and the way that I always explain anxiety is the lack of being present, which, you know, impact will force you to be present, right? So it's more of a holistic, my hippie-ish
Same idea.
You know, and so for me, it's being able to create acceptance of the fight and enjoying it. You know,
but instead versus action, so it still fits.
And so that's really the conversations that I have with them is how present can you be when you're doing the sandbag carry? So you're feeling your lower back, but I asked you not to feel your lower back. So rather than thinking, again, this is my cartoon mind coming into action, rather than thinking that you're in a scary movie, why don't you go to Pirates of the Caribbean and make it a fun adventure? So move around, explore a little bit, and see what you can do to not feel your lower back.
Exactly.
And so
can you do something about it?
That's interesting.
That's the biggest one we see, by the way. People are refused to move around to see a way to not hurt.
Not feel, And, you know, I do my phylogenetic hierarchy, which is workout, which is take the sandbag, walk it as far as you can, and then walk it back. And it's always funny because that one I can tell exactly how much stress people can handle, because people walking there, like walking one direction as far as they can, those that have no clue, the mouse that can't go into the lightly will drop it and then go, shit, I could have gone further. But they first need to feel safe enough going that far. And then on the walk back,
as far as I go.
And then as soon as they walk back, they're like, wait, I could have done more. And so then basically all I do is I say, it's small lessons being learned, but more than anything, it's being able to understand that you can act on things, and B, being able to understand that you can accept it and be present in them. And so that's been the biggest thing that I've seen is I can tell people that are, we talk about having the anxiety driver and the sadness driver. I can tell anxiety driver people because they never want to be present, and they'll displace the tension mentally and physically. So they could be doing the work, but you can tell that in their head they're
going all over the place.
I saw that a lot with Janina when I was trying to get her to get the VMOs. And her head, she would start looking around, or the biggest ones, like they shake their head like they're not happy with what they're doing because they can't feel anything, because they expect instant gratification. And so that's what I master is I force people to be there mentally and physically.
Stay.
And, I always say, find pleasure within the pain, meaning I understand it hurts, you're feeling a burn, a pump, whatever it is, but fuel it. Like that's the whole point. Fuel that pump into as far as you can.
You're feeling something. It's good.
Yeah. And so the point is trying to get to that level of getting towards that executive network to build up that active eye and just be present with the fight that you're trying to do, which feeds the pressure
But I've seen it's true. I've seen that a lot with people that just take off.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, like they start, like even techniques, they start to, because I've seen it with Jenny a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when she was going under and she started pressing forward, I'm like, you're not doing anything
at all.
Like, what are you doing? Like, I've seen that on push-ups, like, but that's not the point. That's not what we talked about. Yeah. They just do the position now, do the drill.
And they keep going through
but they're not present anymore. They're gone.
So that's been, I think, one of the biggest things.
Presence, right?
Is being present with whatever you're doing. I don't care what it is. Find a way to allow you to be present. So even now, doing the dishes. Nobody likes doing the dishes. So how can you make it a present moment while doing the dishes? I time myself. Because I'm competitive. So I'm like, how fast can I do the dishes, but do them correctly, right? And so, or small things like that, like now I find joy, like now it's very therapeutic doing the dishes. Like you said, like I brought up a fight level on something very rudimentary.
Yeah.
But now rather than like before, it's funny because before my mid back and my traps would start to get super tight.
Yeah, like I had that before doing
washing.
this. Yeah.
And now I really enjoy it. And now like I've even started doing it, like I'll just go on my tippy toes and I'll just kind of just as I'm doing it, try to get like...
You know how I do it? I pretend it's not there. So it's about moving my hand.
Not about washing the dishes.
Yeah.
But then what if you leave stuff on the dish?
No. I pay attention.
Oh, okay.
But I pay attention. But that's the key, is I'm moving my hand.
Right.
There is no dish.
There is no dish.
There is no dish.
The Matrix.
Yeah, it's funny. But for me, it's funny how well it works. I'm doing the stuff because I can tell I'm doing it. But that's not where my consciousness is.
It's almost like a dance. My
consciousness is moving. Yes, exactly. I'm moving. And they just happen to be a dish in my way.
Right.
Yeah. It's totally that.
But so that was like one of the biggest things is that, and then people freaking out because you stress people out sometimes because you're so direct.
Whatever.
Well, because we were talking about doing like no fixes. And no, hold on. Let me explain the whole story. No, but so when you tell somebody like take away all the fixes, it's scary. Like that's a very bright room.
Yes, exactly.
And people are watching, and it can be very scary, which can cause people to recluse. Coach, you have to adapt.
Or you go, bring it on, bitch. But that's another way of looking at life.
It just depends on people's
exactly.
And so we were talking about like doing the fixes, and so one of the guys was talking about, he's like, well, I'll start having a beer as I'm doing the lawn, and I was like, well, why don't you have the beer afterwards as a reward for doing the lawn, and we can kind of have those conversations. And like the fixes that people started to notice, like one of the big ones was going to the bathroom and going on the phone. So when he didn't want to be present, they would go to the bathroom, and then they can pull out the phone, but it was just sitting in the bathroom to get away from everybody.
Okay. That I get that one complete. I get that one. But I've noticed peeing for me, like I wake up to pee at night, sometime in between dreams, and then I'm peeing and I realize within 2 seconds I'm done. I was like, well, I didn't need to wake up for that.
Right.
But the urge to pee was almost the same as when I actually need to pee. I've noticed that lately.
I will fight. Like I have to pee so bad, and I'm like, I'm comfortable. I will try and go back to sleep.
It fucks up my dreams.
Does it?
Yeah. So that's why I have to pee but I think I created that because there was a time where if I didn't, zombies would show up in the dream. That's when I knew it was time to pee.
That's
when zombies showed up.
Yeah.
But now I feel, so my dreams get too passive. Where I'm in a dream and I'm not in the dream the way I want to be.
Right.
I know usually I have to go pee. But I think, so now I created the other stuff where wherever I'm in a dream where I feel passive, where I don't like, I get up, I pee, I come back and I can control my dream. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening.
I like it.
Because sometimes I pee, I don't need to pee. But there's moments too where I'll pee like 5 times in a row. I'm like, dude, like, an hour later, I'm still peeing. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Yeah, there's stuff like that where,
there were some weird fixes that I came about. But so the course was cool because, again, I build up, each week kind of builds up on another. And then by the end, you're like, okay, now it makes sense. So it's tools to allow you to just be more present with yourself, right? And again, it's stuff like if you don't do it, like if you do jumping, but you're not really jumping, then it's not going to work. Doing? Or if you have super cushy shoes, like it's the effect's not there. So it's how raw can you get with yourself, right? And I think it goes back to that first conversation we had where you are your own true judge. So you get to decide where that fix comes in, where you want to push, how like a big fix is building up that mental fight. Like I see that
Continuously,
sometimes
yeah.
where people will make this massive, I always call it putting the pussy on the pedestal
Yep.
from 40-Year-Old Virgin,
Yep.
where you develop this massive idea where you can't just start by jumping. Like you have to think about jumping and now I have to do the drills. And then after the drills, I have to go sprint. But if I sprint, then that means I'm going to cut out the weightlifting and then...
And therefore you don't do anything.
Yeah. And so I see that a lot with people where they create such a larger image and mental fight that then they don't create any action. And so...
Yeah, because they're making it so much harder on themselves.
And that's where, again, your mentality is jump head first.
Always.
But for me, it's like, all right, so let's just allow you to pick up the sandbag and drop it. And that's all you're doing today. And then
I'll agree with that because
therapy
it's an
in that
action.
sense.
I'll agree with that completely. Me, where I see people making it harder on themselves, my way of doing things, which is sometimes a bit rougher,
Unique.
yes, is just to confront them with the fact that they are doing that so that they don't have to do any, so that they can quit.
Yeah.
It's a way of quitting.
Right.
It's someone who wants to build a business, but they needs to borrow $1 million to do it.
Right.
I'm like, dude, you just don't want to.
Just go do
You
something,
just don't want to do it.
Right.
Like gyms, people are like, well, my gym has to have this. You know where I heard that the most with artists in the movie industry? People will always tell you about that one movie they would do.
Right.
And you knew right away that they would never make a movie, ever.
Right.
Because he had to have this, he had to have that, he had to have that actor, and you're like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Because
they
already
you just need to start.
Right. It's like people have that super long business plan and then they need $1 million to start. And you go, no, you don't. All you need is a garage gym.
Right.
And then you start with 20 clients and you're fine.
Yeah.
But so people do that. They build up the stuff in their head so that they don't start.
Right.
Because then they just give them excuses as to, well, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have that. Bullshit.
I used to get that a lot with athletes. Like, oh, I would be killing it, but I'm hurt.
Or,
Like,
I have this, or if I had that, and like, no, dude, you just
I mean,
quitting.
I did that, so I can't. Like, it was like, oh, I would be killing this competition, but the way my hip and this.
Okay,
is
but
hurting
let's be honest. This is called quitting.
Yeah.
That's all. So me,
Right.
what I do a lot is just calling out of love.
Yeah.
Is calling people out on it, saying, no, you're quitting. Like,
Right.
You know what I don't want? So I agree completely with pick the sandbag because that's an action.
Yeah.
What I don't want is to allow people to also to lie to themselves about
Right.
what they're doing.
Well, we see that a lot, right? So like I get that a lot with clients where this is why I don't like talking about emotional mapping or the muscles because then they use
Without the
it as
experience,
and then I have clients where every time they go to an exercise, like I was doing the exercise and then I started thinking about this and I had this crazy flashback and I started doing this and I was like, and what happened to the workout?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that's why I stopped because I thought about something. I'm like,
and so I was
bullshit.
Like,
yeah,
come
exactly.
on now.
Yeah.
Like let's not go there either. So the action needs to take place, right? And so
as long as this happens, I'm cool. Yeah.
As long as it's not a like speaking, we always say it's a very passive form. Like there's action to it at times, but a lot of the speaking that's being done most of the time is very, very passive.
Right. You know what both of us we want? We want to see progress.
Right.
And I will agree with you that I don't care the size of the progress.
Right.
I'll agree with you entirely on that. If you progress that much, you're still being everybody else who's not.
Well, and that much
I'm cool
for
with.
us could be that much, but for you it's this much. So
I agree completely with that. I'm totally agreeing with that. What I don't want to see is people using what we do as an excuse to not make progress because it's fucking work and you have to. So that's the only thing where sometimes, and by the way, my way of doing is not always effective because to a lot of people, it feeds that to, he said to do all this, therefore I can't do the first part, therefore I won't do anything. So they use my aggression as a way to stop themselves from progressing.
Right.
So my way is not necessarily working either.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that sometimes wants to call out saying, no, that's called quitting.
Right, for sure.
Just know that.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm too aggressive about it half the time. I'm the first one to say it.
Let's be honest. Quitting it's not okay, but it's a lesson being learned. Like don't get stuck with that.
If you acknowledge that you did.
Yeah.
Then yes, exactly. I've quit too.
Right.
I quit jiu-jitsu, I quit strongman, but I'm trying to learn the lesson from that.
Right.
Like that's why also I play in my mind with the idea of competing in jiu-jitsu because I'm like, how come it gave you so much anxiety back then?
Right.
Like, do you have anxiety if you think about it now? So at night.
And you start going out.
And I'm like, I do. Yeah, okay, but why? Why? Is it the socialization? Is it what this is? Is it because sometimes, truth be told, like, I don't necessarily like the world of jiu-jitsu because of the posturing. of
Right, of
young
people.
male energy within fighting. You've seen how it is?
Yeah.
The egos are large
Yeah.
and the posturing is elevated.
I choose my fighters that I train very carefully.
Exactly.
Very carefully.
I love training with Paul because he's so, good as a coach, but he's also intellectual about it. And
He's a martial artist.
Exactly.
He understands that it's a craft.
Exactly. So when I go into martial arts, I love. When I go into the sports jiu-jitsu, I don't.
Right.
So it's almost like, that old Japanese way of like, I learn to fight so I never have to.
Right.
That's a little bit the way I like it. So I would see a competition in a way to just elevate my craft. But when I get there, that's not what I see. I see just young guys wanting to fight, stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want that.
Right.
So I think that's where, but is this where that anxiety come from? Or I'm just a pussy. I'm just quitting on myself. Is that what this is? But okay, so I understand completely those questions, right? But that made me quit. So now I want to not go back, but I want to understand why I quit so that I don't make that mistake again within myself. So I understand that. But sometimes you need someone to point out the fact that you're bullshitting yourself right now. And I did.
Right.
But
well,
I would like to have to have a mentor back then telling me, dude, you're just quitting.
Right.
You're not, don't justify it. You're quitting.
And you said that like when certain things happen, like with the Barbell Shrug podcast, like if you wouldn't have been ready, that podcast we wouldn't be here, right?
No.
So it's that quit could also be partly you're not necessarily ready.
Right.
And then
So ego comes in.
Right.
I think I'm ready when I'm not.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, like,
because I
see
didn't put
that
the work. Yeah.
partly with like social media and stuff. Like I sent you messages and you're like, just let them do their thing. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
But then I get messages from other coaches going like sending me like fucking angry messages on people that have posted things. I was like, well, dude, just there you
go.
If you keep doing your thing. And so like the ego, I think definitely is part of the quitting mechanism because it doesn't want you.
Well, because it's too much energy spent. There's a diva brain.
Right.
That's what I realized. Actually, a lot of my problem was actually the diva brain lying to me.
Right.
So I would justify things where at the end is the diva brain not wanting me to spend energy on that because he wants the energy for itself, which I understand the concept now much better. And the truth is, in many times, it was that.
Yeah.
It was just not doing the work. Because what I should have done is just keep being at the level I was at and just fucking put the consistent work.
Right.
Like it's nice to evolve every week, but let's be honest, after a while, it's gonna slow down. Not stagnate, but it's gonna slow down. But that's where the work is, right? And you just keep doing the work like that every week and then you get good.
Right.
But maybe it was a lack of support system in my life, whatever it was, but it was that incapacity to just not wait, but just do the work.
Right.
Just, you're doing work, it's working, right? You're making progress, then just chill. But then, so instead of elevating the mental fight, lower it and let this fight become, and then that's where good things happen. That's what the opposite of anxiety, whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah. And
it's not flow, right? I mean, it's between that flow and fight.
Yeah.
It's such a like.
I know.
I think that's something that maybe not on. We could go into this podcast, but like closing that loop between when we first looked at the phylogenetic hierarchy, and I remember I was in the States and you were here in Utrecht, and I sent you, and I was like, at the time we saw freeze, flight, fight, and flow. And I said, in order to get people out of that freeze, out of that, sadness driver, it was to get them to a fight. And I was like, I just can't figure out for the flight or the anxiety driver they need to get to the flow, right? And so
but that brings a good question. Like if the mental fight is higher than the physical fight, you get anxiety. What if the mental fight is lower than the physical fight? Is that where, remember that no mind?
Right.
Is that what this is?
So then, but it's a physical flow, not a mental flow, which I think.
But that's the thing is, if you've been in a fight and the fight is there, but it's lesser in your mind, to me, it's the best feeling in the world because it's when you're like that, that's when you're a badass. It's like the fight is there and you feel it everywhere, but mentally you're like, you stay within the flow of things, even though the stuff is a massive aggression in Jiu-Jitsu. That's the flow in Jiu-Jitsu, is when the mental fight is lower than the physical one.
Right.
Maybe that's what it's supposed to be, though.
Maybe that's the flow. The flow
maybe
is
that's
the observation taking over.
Right. So the capacity to flow under pressure. Remember. Yeah. So maybe that's what flow is. Is the mental fight is lower than the physical fight.
Right.
That would explain the carries, the stuff where I stayed when my femur were bending. I was like, so I'm not the best idea.
Yeah.
I said again, but that I wasn't nervous about it. I was like, so what?
Right.
I've decided I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so even though the physical fight was there, it never entered my mind. Maybe because my mental fight was lower than my physical one. Maybe that's what the flow is. And that would explain, so the opposite of anxiety would be,
Being
you know what I mean, would be
active,
the flow, whatever. Words are always a problem. But maybe that's the goal.
Yeah, but I think it's important. In this case, the semantics of this are important because most of the people out there in the world are selling flow as a more towards a passive approach.
Negation of the physical fight. Namaste the better way. Pretend there is not. Where actually we're saying the opposite. Bring up the physical fight. Lower the mental fight. Yeah. So we're actually saying the opposite.
Right.
So you cannot namaste the better way. Even more.
Yeah.
Even more.
Which would make sense completely with the hierarchy of the nervous system.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that's the thing. Yeah, maybe that's the thing.
To loop it all together for.
So but that's a very good point. Maybe the key is to namaste, but while bringing the fight higher.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't namaste the better way because their way of doing it is avoiding it. That's not what we're talking about. On the contrary, it's accentuate the physical fight, but while lowering the mental one. Maybe that's the key.
Yeah.
So the key would be, and if you can lower the fight, stay mentally at the same, but then increase the physical fight. That alone will diminish anxiety, which is what we see. And the problem is when you move the goalpost.
Right.
When you add that pressure again to yourself.
So what would be a advice you would give somebody who moves the goalpost? Don't move it. It's very simple. Do not move the goalpost.
No, but that's where discipline,
almost
I think.
Subconsciously, right? Like it's
but that's where a mentor or a coach is there for. Because I had that with Janina non-stop. Where it was the second we are getting close, here goes the goalpost. Right. So I think that's where discipline comes in. Maybe that's where also, by the way, programming or stuff like that is good. That's why it works.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to stick within the goalpost that you set to begin with. So that's where structure, I think, would be good. I have that a lot with nutrition. Where now I'm at a stage where I know I eat. Not everybody can do it like this. I know I'm autistic. I get it.
He eats the same thing every day. I would lose my shit after day 3.
I do.
I would go on a
We're
binge.
talking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Almost the same quantities. Actually, not the same quantities too. But so I know exactly where I'm at to be at the weight I want to be at now.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly because I know, the quantities. So it was an interesting experiment that way. But that'd be the thing. So now I have my base, right? I'm stabilized on the base. So if I want this, I can just play a little bit. So structure in that sense.
Right.
Because, for example, if I get fat, I know where he was. He was like, dude, you went past this. Right. It's not. So again, it's a measure, not a target. You know what I mean? Like I'm not targeting a weight or anything like that.
I wonder if there's a correlation between anxiety and the ability for kids. Well, because you see it both ways, right? So I mean, obviously there's different symptoms of anxiety as we see it.
By the way, as well.
But you look at anxiety and you look at the people that have most anxiety or looking at the kids now. I mean, they just say you have ADHD and you have this and you have that, and they medicate it. But the amount of discipline or lack thereof discipline that's happening with kids nowadays.
That too. But remember, like, do the work, suck it up and everything, man up, all those like toxic masculinity at some point were necessary because at some point, once you know what the work needs to be, for example, in a world that takes away the fight, that means we have to increase it in the gym.
Right.
Once you understand and know that, all right, then you have your path forward.
Right.
And there is a moment where that discipline needs to be there, that structure needs to be there, so that you do it. Like, because again, what do we see? We see people saying like, well, there's so much to do, and then they ended up doing none of it. Right. It's mental fight versus a physical fight. There's a moment where that taking action has to take place. I do believe this is where the discipline comes in. But us, we discipline, even though I'm not structured, we are very disciplined actually because the passion to the craft makes you fucking work. I study stuff I don't want to study. I hate biology. You're all making me do this, but I hate biology. But because I'm like, but I want to know.
Right.
So I do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's in the back now, whether I like it or not.
And working with clients, like I never ask anybody for 4 weeks.
Right.
I'm like, I need a long term here.
We need to do the work.
There needs,
right.
Exactly.
But so it's the same thing. It's like, come on, give me 2 months, give me 3 months so we can get somewhere. Because we've been doing it. But there is that notion right there. I was like, right, in order to increase the physical fight, I need a physical component to it.
Right.
And that's where the talking comes in. People just talking. I'm like, stop
why
talking.
They can't and why they can't and why they can't.
Stop talking. Stop fucking expanding on the subject and stop like, what it's called, like, opening up on this. That's great. But at some point,
It needs to.
You need to fucking do the work,
Right.
right? And there is to be progress. Maybe not a humongous one, but some progress.
Yeah.
That's where I think the discipline and the structure comes in. And I have my own discipline in my own weird way, but I'm actually
I think that
extremely disciplined in what I do.
We're very structured in our very
Yeah,
unstructured way. The
very.
world just sees us as unstructured, but we're very.
But that's not true.
structured.
If you look at the amount of work that we do, actually,
Yeah.
it's humongous.
Yeah.
Because people study one thing, like PhDs, it's one thing. Like I talk to a lot of academics and I lose them the second I go outside of a very specific thing. I'm like, yeah, but the system is highly integrated. All of this works together. You can't just study oxygen, lactate, and not go into noradrenaline or stuff. How do you think the whole shit works?
Right.
But so they are not nearly as disciplined as we are structured in the sense of us, we look at a big system that is hard to complex, and we just hammer every little thing in it to understand how to make it work for humans. It's easy. You know why the biggest difference is? There is no lactic acid in the human body. You can study lactic acid in a petri dish and everything, but the second you're in the human body, it doesn't work like that. Where did the mistake come from? They were only studying in a petri dish. I'm like, yeah, but you have to put it in the human body, otherwise it doesn't count.
Right.
So in a way, we are very disciplined, but that's where I think people fuck it up, is they keep looking at the stuff we say on paper, on Facebook quotes and everything, but at some point, guess what? It's gonna have to be within your integrated system. Yeah. And now the shit is complicated, and now you have to do the work. And the work can't be like, well, I feel like it. I don't care.
Or they pick and choose.
Right. And it's a Chinese menu again. Yeah. And they go like, and then, well, can I do the jumping journey with this? No. Just do the fucking work.
Yeah.
First, give yourself 4 weeks to experiment, to experience something. Yeah. This is where the fight is. And this is, at some point, someone has to be daddy and go, dude, you're just not doing it.
Right.
Let's be honest, you're not doing it. And the greatest discovery in your life when you see those blind spots. For me, it is. I started to see, because of the support I have at home now, I'm starting to see the number of blind spots where I was like, that's where I was fucking up constantly with jiu-jitsu and all this. That's where it is.
Yeah.
Like, because now I'm safe enough at home that I can start to see the aggression of the world's on me because of the way I am and everything. And I go like, I avoided that. I avoided this. I was not doing the work. Right. I was just having that whole structure in your mind. That was bullshit.
Right.
But that's, to me, the greatest discovery is that when you go, oh, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was just bullshitting myself. So, but that's structure in a
that
weird
acceptance,
way.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's okay, by the way.
Yeah.
We all do it. We all lie to ourselves on a bunch of stuff.
For sure.
To me, the best feeling is to go, oh, there's one. Because guess what? You just fix a major issue. You're not lying to yourself about it. Now they just work to be done, which in a way is the easiest thing.
Right.
Coming to the gym and just do farmer's walk every day. That's the easiest thing in the world. What problem is the build up in your head about, but then do I put more weight? Just come pick up the shit.
Right.
That's it. Mental fight lower than the physical one. If it's just that, imagine how simple it is. If you can understand that it's just that.
That's an extremely simple concept, but it's not easy.
But it's simple.
No, but it's super simple. Like, I mean, saying it sounds, you're like, well, duh.
Like
Black Swan moment. You know what I mean? You're like,
yes, exactly.
More physical fight, less mental fight. Like, I saw
physical
The
fight
Last Samurai.
Still one of my favorite movies.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's an extremely difficult thing to accomplish in a world where
it's the exact opposite.
The exact opposite, yeah.
The world is selling the exact opposite. Higher mental fight, lower physical fight. And we're not even saying, but the goal would be to have a mental fight lower than the actual physical fight. So right now it's going to take you to lower the mental fight and go higher. But eventually what we want, because you're still going to have anxiety at first.
By the way, we do Action February. I'm already making it up.
Action February, I like it. The key will be...
We go bungee jumping. Action February, Coach.
No.
There's good impact.
No. There is no impact. There should not be any impact. Anyway, the point will be at first you lower anxiety, but anxiety will not be gone because the fight is still not there in the proper ratio. The key is a lower mental fight than an actual physical one. Maybe that's the key.
Right.
And what we want is to get you there, but that means that at first you won't be there. So you will lower the anxiety, but there still will be anxiety because people are like, I'm still anxious. Well,
it's still a function, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's still sometimes necessary in this world.
But as long as, again, then we go back to progress. As long as there's less,
progress,
it's all good.
Going back to the control function.
You're not going to be in a world where, can you imagine, you would have to master every skill there is to not be anxious about something.
If there is no anxiety, it could also mean that you're going towards the depression side, right?
It means, or you mastered every skill in life.
Right.
Chances are, yeah.
Right.
Well, because the mental fight is so gone.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, some people are going to use it this way. We're saying less mental fight than the actual physical fight. If there's no physical fight and you lower the mental fight, you're going toward depression.
Yeah.
Because now, yes, but that's the issue we see. Because they took out the antennas.
Right.
So the antennas have to indicate a higher fight than you're having mentally.
Yeah.
That's the secret. So, but the problem is people have taken that out. So now if they say lower the mental fight, then you go toward depression.
Yeah. Like I had
that's the thing.
A guy I worked with for a few months, awesome dude in Eastern. Where's that? I'm gonna mess it up.
Kazakhstan?
No. Where's the fighter that fought with the Bears?
Oh, him.
Khabib. Where's Khabib from?
No, he's not Chechnya. He's
Dagestan. And he's a coder and everything, and has back pain, and so all I did is simple. I'm like, you just need to train every day. I don't care what you do. Just go to the gym. And it was awesome because he would send me these videos with like 1 kilo plates, and he's 2 meters tall. Like he's a tall dude, plays basketball. And I was like, we need to go heavier. And so as soon as he started to have more impact, you could just tell, just without having to go so deep into the knowledge behind what I'm trying to get him to accomplish, he naturally just starts going, hey, I'm feeling better. Hey, like my confidence is going up. This is happening. Like
because he doesn't know any better. He just knows that. Yeah.
And so it's our job as our craft as trainers and coaches is being able to understand that we do need the action and we need to take the step forward, and
but we need both, right? Prediction versus observation. I think people just take out the observation. That's the problem is. Whereas what we do is but then you can't deal just with the observation enough either, because if you just deal with that, the mental fight is still higher than the physical one. You still have anxiety. So I think what we do so well is we handle both. But I think that's the secret is a lower mental fight than a physical one. Fuck, I'm going to work on that.
I like it.
I'm going to do a farmer's work like that every time with no mental preparation, no ramping up, just lifting with the lowest amount of energy mentally possible.
That's what I do with the sandbag cleans.
Right.
When I do a cold one, I want to show off in front of people.
Yeah. No, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with the lowest mental fight. But I'm going to do that for kicking today.
Yeah.
Lowest mental fight possible and still kicking as hard as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. That's a great one to end on.
That's I like it.
Higher physical fight, lower mental fight, guys. That's how we're going to finish this one. Follow us, subscribe, click all around us.
There.
We have some cool stuff coming up in the future. This one, we'll already have our courses going, but we're going to have some really cool stuff that we're working on and some new upgrades to the old principles and concepts.
That too is coming. Yep.
So stick around. Keep watching, guys.
You guys.
Have a good one. Oh, we didn't say. Oh, wait. I have my Hydro Flask.
Oh, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Hydro Flask.
Sponsored by
Hydro Flask, one of the best.
Let's think about it. That's a sponsor.
Yeah, damn it, we forgot the sponsors. We should do a sponsor by Block Guides.
Funko Pops. Yeah.
Yeah, Funko Pops.
Fuck, it's cold today.
Yeah.